Hey guys, Mike here with a big heart. When I was 17 years old, I died. Well, not actually, but I almost did. I went into sudden cardiac arrest, and today I'm going to tell you all about the day that changed my life forever. So when I was 17 years old, I almost died. And today, I'm going to tell you all about that day. But before we do, I want to take you back a little bit to kind of set the stage for the days that led up to my sudden cardiac arrest. So growing up, I was very, very passionate about basketball. My goal in life was to be a college basketball player. I thought that playing basketball was my purpose. And it was everything I did. In middle school, high school, I was on so many different teams. I played all year round. I spent all summer working with trainers to get bigger, faster, stronger. I would get in the gym and take hundreds of jump shots, work on my ball handling, improve my skills, so that when it came time to play games, I was as good of a player as I could possibly be. And I wanted to do everything I could do to put myself in position to play basketball at the collegiate level. So as I started to get into high school and started, playing AAU and traveling, we would go to these different tournaments where the college coaches would go to recruit. So I could play in front of coaches that would hopefully recruit me to come play at their school. So, I spent the summer of my junior and senior year. So between my junior and senior year, I spent that summer traveling all around, playing in different camps, different tournaments, so that college coaches could see me and hopefully they would want me to come play for them. And in between all of that, I was just a really healthy guy. I went and saw my doctor every year. I had a yearly physical, and every single year he would look at me, he would hit my knee, he would take my height, weigh me, ask me a few questions, and then send me out the door on my way because I was healthy. I was athletic, I was in great shape. He told me everything I was doing was perfect. There was never any reason for me or my family to think that I could possibly have something wrong with my heart. I never had my heart checked. So again, junior year, and I'm playing basketball all throughout my summer between my junior and senior year, and college coaches start to call. At this time, this was, in ancient times in 2006, they would send letters to the house. So I'd run to the mailbox every day, and I have a stack of letters with different college logos, with a note from the coach saying, Mike, we want you to come play for us. This is the best place for you academically, the best place for you athletically. They'd send emails. They'd call the house phone and leave voicemails on the answering machine, another ancient thing that I grew up with. But, I started to feel good because my dream to be a college basketball player was starting to become a reality. I was eventually going to visit these schools that wanted me and pick the best one where I was going to have the best time, the best a basketball career, the best academic career, and it was really going to shape those really crucial 4 years of my life. So everything was going really well. So now I'm going to take you kind of towards the end of that summer. It was the last week of summer vacation before school started. And my brother and I was 17, he was 13, we were both camp counselors at a basketball camp that my dad had started way back in the day before we were even born. So it was Wednesday night, and we decided that the next morning we were going to wake up early, go do our basketball workout, so that when camp ended, we could do the workout, go to camp, and then hang out by the pool for the rest of the day. Well, what's better than doing that for a high school kid? So we woke up that next morning, August 24th, 2006, and we woke up at 6 a.m. and had breakfast, and one of our friends pulled up in his blue SUV, and we ran out the front door, hopped in his car, and he drove us to a local school. And he put us through a 90-minute basketball workout. And it was exactly what you would imagine. 90 minutes of intense running, shooting, dribbling, sprinting. Heart rate was going up, down, and I remember the workout to this day. It was normal. Nothing really stood out to me, to my brother, to my friend. We still talk about it, and we don't remember anything. I was fine. After the workout ended, it was about 8 a.m. We got back in his car, and we drove over to the local Parks and Recreation Center where the basketball camp was being held. And I walked in, said hi to my dad, I changed my shirt, ordered my lunch, and I don't remember anything else that happened that day. It was about 8:30 when I got there. And from 8:30 to 10:30, I was a typical camp counselor, right? I was outside with the kids, doing drills, refereeing, coaching, playing games, just having fun, having fun at basketball camp. At 10:30, we had just come inside from hanging out, on the outdoor courts. And, I was sitting on the front row of bleachers. My friend was sitting next to me. There was a bunch of kids surrounding me. And my brother was refereeing the game. And out of nowhere, I just kind of slumped forward onto the ground. And I was in sudden cardiac arrest. So before I go further and tell you more about my story, I'm going to talk a little bit about sudden cardiac arrest. So the way our heart works is it pumps blood throughout the body. And what it does is it pumps the blood to the vital organs, which keep us alive, right? Which keep us kind of doing our day-to-day things that we love to do. And we don't really think about it because that's just kind of what the heart does. But when you go into sudden cardiac arrest, hence the name, it really happens quickly and out of nowhere. There's not a lot of warning signs. There's not like a lot of symptoms that lead up to it. It really just comes out of nowhere. And it's different than a heart attack. That's really important to understand. Sudden cardiac arrest and a heart attack are two different problems with the heart. So I was in sudden cardiac arrest. So like we had talked about before, the heart is pumping blood throughout the body, right? And all of a sudden you go into cardiac arrest and the heart stops working. Cardiac arrest is an abnormal rhythm with the heart, also known as an arrhythmia. So if you can imagine the heart beating, right? It's beating like normal, blood's flowing throughout the body, then all of a sudden, the heart starts kind of quivering and shaking. And now it's completely stopped. So when someone goes into sudden cardiac arrest, blood is no longer flowing throughout the body. It's no longer going to the vital organs. And that is why sudden cardiac arrest is such a time-critical emergency. So when someone goes into sudden cardiac arrest, there's two things that have to happen in order for that person to survive. And if those two things happen, survival rates can be very, very high. The first is CPR, also known as cardiopulmonary resuscitation. And what CPR does is it buys time, and by providing chest compressions, it could keep the blood flowing throughout the body, right? So if immediate CPR is provided, that improves survival rates greatly. The second thing that needs to happen is someone needs to be shocked by an automated external defibrillator, also known as an AED. And what that shock does is it can actually correct the abnormal rhythm. And if those two things happen, immediate CPR and a quick shock from an AED, survival rates from sudden cardiac arrest can be very, very high. So let's go back to my story now. So I just collapsed. My best friend's really confused. He thinks I'm like making a joke. He thinks I'm like just messing around trying to get the kids to laugh. So he kicks me just to try to like be like, dude, like what are you doing? Then all of a sudden he realizes I'm not responding. This is bad. He sprints to go get my dad. They clear all the kids out of the gym. My dad comes in screaming and doesn't really understand what's going on. He's not trained in CPR. He doesn't know what to do. No one really knows I'm in sudden cardiac arrest. No one expects this young, healthy 17-year-old guy that possibly needs CPR to have something wrong with his heart. So the people that did have some CPR certification didn't think I needed it because I was doing something that's very common for someone in sudden cardiac arrest, and that's called agonal gasping. Agonal gasping is very common, and it sounds like a wheezing noise, a long drawn-out breath, a snore, a groan. This is very common in someone that's in sudden cardiac arrest, and someone making those noises needs CPR right away. So nobody gave me CPR, and then for whatever reason, the Parks and Recreation Center did not have an automated external defibrillator or an AED in the building. So those two factors made my chances of survival very, very low. I got lucky because the people around me were smart enough to call 911. And in the building next door, there was a guy sitting at his desk, and he was a volunteer EMT. And he was just working his 9-to-5 job, working on his computer, responding to some emails, and all of a sudden, his pager goes off. And he looks down at it, and he recognizes the address. So that's the building next door. Let me go over and see what's going on. So he comes over, finds me on the ground. My dad's screaming. People are yelling. Nobody really knows what to do. I'm turning blue. And he starts doing CPR. And he does CPR for a very long time. And he does it very, very well because he keeps me alive until an ambulance arrives. And when that ambulance arrives, the EMTs run in with the defibrillator, slap the pads on me, turn it on, and they shock me. They deliver a shock to my heart. And all of a sudden, on the rhythm, on the screen, they can see sudden cardiac arrest rhythm, flatline, heartbeat. And I was still unconscious. I was still very, very critical, but there was a heartbeat. So they threw me in the back of an ambulance, rushed me from one hospital to another hospital, where I landed in the pediatric intensive care unit. And like I said before, I was 17 years old. That's why I was in the pediatric ICU. By far the biggest person in the whole unit, by a long shot. There's a lot of babies there. So I was unconscious. They kept me sedated. I was in a very, very critical state. There still was question whether or not I was going to survive or not at this point. And if I did survive, there was questions of whether or not I would be able to kind of have brain function. So they kept me sedated, and my parents were distraught. They, followed the ambulance. My mom actually ended up being in the back of the ambulance. And once everybody kind of settled down, they pulled my parents into a room, and a really sweet pediatric cardiologist told them about my sudden cardiac arrest and told them that because I didn't receive CPR immediately and because there was no AED in the building, that my chances of survival that day were 1 in a million. And there was still a chance I wasn't going to make it, but she said it was a miracle that I had even made it this far, that I was in a hospital bed with a heartbeat and a pulse, and that I was on a ventilator, but that I still had a chance. And then she explained to them that, there was a chance that I had heart disease, right? And they had to figure out what caused me to go into sudden cardiac arrest. And when I was well enough, they were going to put me in tests to figure that out. And my parents were so shocked by this. They didn't think that heart disease could affect a young, healthy 17-year-old guy. But it did. They even tried to argue with the doctor, and not really in a disrespectful way, but just because they were so surprised and distraught that, they had kind of lost control of their son, and, their son had just almost died. And, it was something that as parents, they felt responsible for missing. And even though it was nothing they ever could have done or anything that was going on with me that could have caused them to know, but they were just so surprised that heart disease affected young, healthy people. So that day changed our lives forever. And, it led to a long day of testing, a few days of not knowing if I was actually going to be okay, and it led us to where we are today. So we're going to talk more about what came after that. But August 24th, 2006 is a day that I almost died, and I survived sudden cardiac arrest.